All right, we'll get started here. Thank you, everyone, for coming out. I appreciate it. My name's Jonah Reynolds. We have been building sustainable off-grid buildings here in the States and all over the country, all over the world for about 38 or so, 40 years. I learned a lot in the field from my father's company, Earthship Biotecture, Michael Reynolds, building the Earthships. And so our company is Pangea Biotecture. Our kind of mantra is together we're strong. And so we have an amazing opportunity before us to do some really good work here. And so we're a full service architecture and construction company. We build single family residential homes, communities, and retrofit and remodel conventional homes to make them more eco, more green. We have an academy where we teach students, which is a nonprofit, so all the tuition is a complete write-off. Go to the next slide. So we're here today to talk about an amazing opportunity, a community, and that is of Taos, for Taos, and by Taos. That's very important that we, that phrase is very important. Typically develops and buildings are by someone and pushing the plan out. This is of the community. So we're doing these public presentations here to engage the community, gather feedback, and refine the project. So this is on 330 acres. It's going to impact a lot of people, the entire county and probably well beyond that. So it's very important, in our opinion, that it's rolled out as an idea and a plan. Not rigid, not like this is how it is. So everything that you're going to see is like a proposal. There are no numbers in here that are finalized. And so that's very important to us that we gather feedback. Taos is brilliant. There's a lot of amazing, experienced, savvy, smart people here. And so the goal here is to present this through these public meetings on the website at taoscommunity.org, and to gather feedback, gather good ideas, build a strong coalition, a strong team to then do this. The next meeting that we're having is next Saturday at the TCA from 1 to 3. So I encourage everyone to come to that also and tell your friends. Next. So the overview. This project is about 1.5 miles north of the blinking light, or what used to be the blinking light, past Medley over there. So here's the highway 150, goes up to where the Y is, to where you get to Saco. There was a previous plan here that was way more dense. This is about a third the density. And so we're looking at the turquoise circles are affordables, the purple are commercials, commercial lots, the red is market value. This is an example of a market value home. For those of you who know about earthships, that is an earthship. What we do is a little different. Our buildings are completely off-grid, but they can look like anything, the aesthetic, whatever, and still be completely off-grid. It's very important to us that the client gets what they want. And so affordable housing and food security is absolutely critical. That's what this entire community is designed around to support. All the green is open air micro farming. And let's see here. So about a month ago, we started the process of acquiring the property, and that takes a little time. And so our goal here is to develop in a way that benefits all of Taos, instead of this property being divided into a whole bunch of 1 acre lots, which each one has their own leach field and their own well, and just a nightmare, you know. I was born here in 1973. Taos is very, very important to me. I do not want that to happen. Next. So we've been designing and building sustainable off-grid regenerative buildings for decades. Regenerative is, if you look at each system, water, power, food production, soil, we put more back in than what we take out. That's the whole idea of regeneration. Affordable housing and food security are the primary concerns. Everything about this community is designed to support these two missions. This is community-driven, self-sufficient development that integrates off-grid regenerative energy, water, and wastewater treatment systems. This right here is very important. It's threaded through everything we do. Next. So to go over the systems here, the average New Mexican uses 81 gallons of fresh potable water a day. 81 gallons is totally crazy. It's crazy that we flush our toilet with potable water when it's dying from lack of potable water in this world. This one here is Utah, 169 a day is the average. So that's depending on what state you're in. Here's a breakdown of a conventional building. And our buildings here, we flush with treated gray water, and I'll go over that in a minute. So that's why these are 0. So the average amount of water that our buildings use is right around 25 or so, give or take. Depends, everyone's different. So that's significantly less. And so it's very important that we use a lot less water and not flush with potable water. Next. So the way these systems work, which we've been doing for many decades here in Taos and all over the world, and it's pretty straightforward. We catch from the roof, goes through roofs and goes through the gutters into cisterns, which are these things on the left that we bury into earth berms, so it's protected, doesn't freeze, and protected from the sun. And they're raised up a little bit so that they can gravity feed into the pump. And this allows us to use different kinds of pumps that don't cost a lot of money, and they're very easy to fix. Any plumber anywhere can fix these. Pumps don't like to pull, and when you have the gravity pushing the water in, it lasts a lot longer. So then from there, and then it goes into this water organizing module, out to the house, code required pressure. This guy right here gives us potable water. So it's rainwater, which is much better for plumbing, for our skin, for our hair, and all that. We are planning on having not more than 3, hopefully 1 backup community well, because I can't predict how much water is going to come out of the sky each year. This winter was really, really low. And I also can't predict how much water everyone is going to use. I can keep them within boundaries, but everyone uses water differently. And it's my job to make sure everyone in this community is safe. and has everything they need. That's why we're doing a backup well. And so it's probably going to do 20%, maybe 30% of the water used. So, and then to get to the regeneration thing is the water that is being used go through gray water planters that's coming up next is cleaned and going back into the ground, following permaculture principles. Next. So wastewater treatment, very, very important. We do not want to pollute our aquifers. This is a typical gray water planter inside of the buildings that we do. We harvest bananas and papayas in February, maybe not this February when it's 20 below outside or 10 below outside and 3 feet of snow. It's basically Costa Rica inside your house, no matter what climate you're in. It's amazing how much food comes out of these things. It makes us look like we know what we're doing with growing food, which over the decades we've figured some things out, but nowhere near, food experts who know what they're doing. And so it's basically something like the Florida Everglades contained inside in a rubber lined planter so nothing leaches out. All these plants treat it. We end up with treated gray water that we flush the toilet with. So to the human eye and the human nose, you can't tell the difference between potable water and this treated gray water that's in the toilet. And so that's how we flush the toilet instead of potable water. Next. And then after the toilet, so everything in the house except the toilet and the dishwasher goes into the gray water planter. Then we have the toilet flushing with that gray water that you did the dishes in days before. That toilet and the dishwasher, because it's got a lot of soaps and everything in it, so we don't typically run that through the gray water planter. All that goes into outside botanical cells, black water planters. Septic tank first, our black water planter, and then typically it's been a leach field after that, but usually there's nothing left that goes into the leach field. We've always done that just to get a permit. And so the idea here is that we do not want to put anything into a leach field. We don't want to leach anything into the aquifers. So we're probably going to do 2 outside black water planters and large carbon filters so that we get the result. We get what we're calling treated gray water at the end of this, so that we can then put it onto the land and grow food and follow permaculture principles and keep more water on the land and not so dry. Next. So food is absolutely critical, and it's amazing how much food comes out of these planters. Pretty much more food than we know what to do with. So when you follow regenerative designs and systems in what we call earthship wallopinis, a wallopini is an Aboriginal term from Australia. Simply, it's a greenhouse that's sunken into the land. And about 5 feet, 6 feet or so, it gives you year-round growing because the temperature of the earth is much more stable when you get below the frost line. Basically 59 or so degrees, depending when you're at. Yeah, come on in, grab a seat. And so what we found, and we're going to be doing biochar and worm farms and really exploring all these different ways beyond just solar and catchwater and gray water, right? And the food production aspect is pretty much the most powerful thing of all of this. It is what makes a community, and it allows it to thrive, and it gives the community a lot of strength outside of this particular community as well. So we're planning to have year-round growing, and all the food that this community is going to use, we're planning on growing it from within. About 1/3 or so, roughly, of all the food we're going to produce, we're going to be donating outside the community. There's a food scarcity issue here, everywhere, pretty much. The middle of Detroit, all these places, and it's terrible. We call ourselves civilized, yet we have homeless and people kids who are hungry when they go to sleep. It's insane. So that's a very big goal in this. And when you have a lot of these buildings, a lot of these gray water planters, a lot of these earthship Walapinis together, the amount of food is just off the charts. And then when you put experts on that, which I'm not a food expert. So this is a cooperative model providing food security for all residents of the larger Taos community. Next. So we have a commercial zone, and we're bringing in sustainable retail and artisan shops, farm to table, a restaurant and a cafe, food and animal synergy market. It's basically a grocery store, but a couple steps down from a typical grocery store, a couple steps up from a farmer's market, somewhere in there. We have to make sure that the farmers, the people that grow the food, get the money. Right now, they get a little of the money from a lot of these grocery stores. And I call it animal synergy. It's just a little thing instead of animal husbandry. Seems a little too on the male side of things. We're doing live work units and co-housing spaces, which was actually my father's thesis, where you have some retail and commercial, and then that same person is living on the top part. They're doing that in Santa Fe a lot. And that's one of two-level buildings. The rest, one level. We're planning on doing a health and wellness center. We want to partner with UNM Taos and do some research and innovation hubs. How much food can we grow? Clean can we make the water? All those types of things. 2 hotels. One is a small kind of our version of that, kind of like an Earthship Taos casita style feel. When you say hotel, you know, you think a giant building and all that. Definitely not that. The second one might be closer to that, but nothing above 2 levels. I don't know how many doors that's going to be. I want to keep it as a minimum. But tourists are important to Taos, especially skiing and all that. Some commercial lots for offices and community arts and cultural center. This right here is the view shed from the east. We draw everything in CAD and 3D, and when we were drawing this months and months ago, we pulled it from the east and we're pleasantly surprised. It seems, you know, pretty mellow there. So that's a 2-level and that's a 2-level. And as you know, with earthships, we can sink them into the ground a little bit to get that profile lower, but that's where it is roughly right now. So that's the view shed from the east. It's very important that this is low impact and we preserve the feel of what it's like over there, of the land, of the broader community. And so the amount of buildings that we're doing or proposing to do is right around 1/3 of the previous plan, just under 1/3. Next. So the residential zone, we have affordable units, and we're starting at $500 a month with no utility bills. We're focusing on the most vulnerable in our community and making them safe. And there are different size buildings and different price points that go up from that, but we're starting there. And so that's very important. They're roughly 350 to 400 square feet. This is a duplex, basically hotel size. And this is for 1 or 2 people. If there's a family that wants to get in, we can adapt this for a little bit larger, but on that same level of around 500 or so a month. That's the turquoise. We're doing all the plots as circles. It's easier and more affordable to survey. It also allows for a lot of common green space between all the circles. Next. Workforce units. Basically the same, but larger, 750 square feet, 800 square feet, somewhere in there. The state defines affordable as around $1,200 to $1,500 a month, which is not affordable in our opinion. Same thing with the workforce, $18,000 to $2,000 a month, which is not appropriate in our opinion for workforce housing people. But it's the same idea: off-grid, sustainable, and affordable, and we're fitting them into these lots. The reason why in each one of these little squares is a unit. The reason why we have that many squares there is to fit in with the county neighborhood association zoning and regulations, because we're not asking for any variances on this community. We're fitting everything in. Now, that doesn't mean the zoning and regulations is on point or even very good, but it is what it is. And they're being rewritten. And of course, we have some ideas there to support affordable housing and green eco building things. But that's the governing thing about how all this layout in this community is. Next. So the big picture. Taos is going to grow. It's going to grow very fast, a lot faster than most of us think or want it to, which, you know, I used to ride my tricycle around the plaza back in, 76 or whatever it was, 77. I want it back the way that was. That's never going to happen. But we can set a precedent on what we'll allow, what we'll accept, and what we expect how Taos to grow. Through this project and other projects, we need to hold developers and builders and architects and all that accountable. So this project can make a very big impact. It can help shape Taos's future growth and its trajectory. We are not going to keep Taos from growing, unfortunately. It's going to grow. So I say, let's get control of that and set a precedent. This is what we'll expect, we will allow as the people of Taos. Next. When people live in off-grid communities, these buildings take care of you. They provide you with water and power. They treat your wastewater. They give you the capacity to grow food. They'll keep you warm in the winter. They'll keep you cool in the summer. They take care of you rather than you take care of the building. This stress struggle thing that we're always in, this 9-to-5 rat race that Bob Marley calls it, it does not work. Clearly, it does not work. So when you flip that, and when you're in a building that takes care of you, and we've done communities like this before, like the Great World Earth community, which isn't perfect, but when you have a lot of people who are living off grid and not having to stress so much from the 9 to 5, we become nicer to ourselves. We become nicer to each other. And I've seen it, and it's an amazing, beautiful thing. People mellow out, we're all on this dopamine thing with social media and all this stuff. So that is an amazing thing that we did not design. It just happened. When we follow the physics and the sustainability and the ancient wisdom and the rhythms of the planet and the trees and the sun and the sky, beautiful results happen. And that's one of them. This is a chance for Taos to come together, to put all of our expertise together into something very meaningful and help a lot of people. Next. So I encourage everyone to show up and ask questions. Bring your ideas. You got to show up. You can't just stay home on this or anything. This project is meant to serve the people of Taos. Let's make it the best possible thing for Taos. It's a model of growth that preserves community values and resources. Next. So here's the overview again. We're looking at 111 buildings total. I gotta get on this side so I can see. Right around 83 residential, 28 commercial, integration with landscape. We're staying far away from the creek in the middle. We're enhancing the acequias to support them. So we have the turquoise as affordables, the red is market value, while the green is growing food, and the purple are commercials. Workforce. So with that, that's the last slide. We'll leave that up and we'll talk and ask questions. Thank you. Yes.
It might be way too early, to know the answer to this. What is your thought about the build-out schedule? How do you sell things? You build some, sell more, build some, sell more.
Right. So we have an idea. I want to build everything yesterday. That's kind of how I roll. My main thing, though, with that, when I hear that point, is I want to get as many as possible before the next freeze, because it's very harsh, as we all know here in the winter, even though this past winter was fairly mellow. So, you know, we have an idea, and we wrap our academy around everything so we can have a ton of students, and that gives us a pretty decent labor force around our crew and get a lot of work done, and then teach and the whole green job thing. And so, you know, we want to build affordable housing here, get the market going there, get the little cafe going there. Whenever we're developing something, you got to have food and drink right there on site. So the goal here is to we've already started the permit process and all the paperwork, and there's a ton of it. I'm hoping to break ground on things in June, somewhere in there. And so, you know, as our group has an idea of what we want to do each year, I want to do it as quickly as possible, mainly for affordable housing, food production, right? We can start growing food now, right? We can get up some of these greenhouses and all that. So that being said, but our list of people, you know, since the Taos News article came out, whatever it was, 3 weeks or something, there's a growing list of like 55 people who want to get in. So there's partly like our plan of what we're planning on doing. And then there's also clients that come in and pick a lot and build. So that will probably go faster than slower. You know, we've always had people asking, when are you going to do the next sustainable off-grid community? So here it is. It could be as quickly as 6 years, it could be as long as 15, 20. It just depends. I'm impatient because I want to get these affordable housing units on as soon as possible. But so we're kind of letting it organically take shape like that. And we have to be sensitive to the area so that it's not some crazy construction thing where we're making a lot of noise and dust and all that. So that's kind of the game we're playing there. Yes.
How much of this are you planning to 3D print?
Yes. 3D printing is an amazing thing. It prints with concrete, which isn't my first choice. Concrete's terrible for the planet, but it's thermal mass, so it holds temperature. The energy that goes into a home, about 15 to 20% is during construction, 80 to 85% is the life of the home, especially when they last a long time. So that's very important. We've been watching the 3D printer thing for a while. They've been printing with cement, which is different than concrete. It doesn't have the rocks, the aggregate in it, so it's not as strong. Now it's there. And so it's very powerful in that it allows us to do 1,000 square feet in a week, give or take, which time is money, and it allows us to get some of these buildings online that much faster. So as many buildings as possible, I would say, to be 3D printed, because it's fast and it lowers the cost per square foot. But we don't want to be too rigid in terms of what building materials should be done here, right? We're pretty much open to anything, cob, Adobe, especially Adobe, which is the original sustainable building material. Pretty much anything except stick frame. I'm not too much of a fan of straw bale because it burns and rots and attracts critters. Oh, definitely hemp. Hemp is a great thing for insulation. It's got the highest R value. We've done a couple of projects already with it, and you can just handle it. It's not like fiberglass. So all the bat insulation here will definitely be hemp. Yeah.
I've got a lot of questions, but I'll start with one.
Sure.
And you may not be able to answer them specifically, but my impression is this is a 501c entity, right?
Our academy is.
Well, with your academy, which is a 501c.
Mhm.
Okay. So you're using your own financing, or you shopping that out in the local market, or
To build out some of these buildings?
This really, but my curiosity is this: when it gets built, who runs it? What is the entity that runs it? Is there a HOA? Is there infrastructural financing, taxation sort of thing involved? And get an idea.
Yeah. So when you do an off-grid sustainable community, there isn't really much infrastructure. because each building takes care of itself with all of its systems. So there's no infrastructure running around. Yeah, roads that's an infrastructure. But we are planning on doing one, maybe 2 or 3 backup wells. So that'll be a line going places that will automatically feed into the cisterns. So that's minimal infrastructure. And then we are going to have an HOA. It will be very strict to keep the whole idea here in line, right? To keep it sustainable and regenerative. And a question I've gotten is how can we make sure that that stays locked in 20 years, 40 years later, so it can't be changed? And that's a real estate attorney, which we've engaged with to make sure that that happens. I'm not an expert there. So yeah, there's an HOA there, which we're drafting. There's bylaws. And then in terms of the entity that owns it, which is that would be us. And I'm maintaining very tight control over this so I can make sure that this happens this way. It's the only way I can see right now to make sure to what?
You're the mortgagee. These people aren't going to pay cash for this stuff, right?
Oh, financing. Right. So when people want to buy in and they want to finance clients and all that, yeah. Sentinel Bank. Yeah.
One last question, and that is, have there any provision for transportation between Taos and the site for just day-to-day?
Yes.
Construction or not? Is that been thought out? Because
Well, we are planning on having a bus stop. That was part of the previous plan also. Yeah, that would come in. And what is it now? 21 years ago, we had a biodiesel company here, and we powered the public bus in Taos as well as other builders and other vehicles. So I'm hoping to get that going again to power those buses. But yeah, they're going to be coming in here, as well as we want to help with the bike path and get a bike path kind of like Venice Beach. I don't know if any of you have seen. It's amazing. It's like no cracks or bumps, and it's beautiful. The beach is beautiful. But to get a bike path from the extreme south all the way to the extreme north, to bike all through Taos, right? Because the car thing is pretty intense. So yeah, so those things and whatever we can do to support those. Yes.
I'm curious about your traffic studies, or are you planning any street lights or left turn lanes?
Yeah. So from the previous development that isn't happening, and there's no connection between that and this other than we bought the land. But the traffic study remains, and we have way less buildings. So, technically that traffic study was approved their previous plan, and ours is,
During COVID,
excuse me?
that traffic study was done during COVID when there wasn't any public traffic.
Right. Well, it was designed for a much more dense community before. This is way less dense. So that study remains. And then, the traffic, the lights all around. Yeah, turn lanes. Yes. From some meetings with the county and the Department of Transportation, there's talk of having a circle thing in the highway, which, I'm not an expert with transportation. Yeah, roundabout. Yeah. And then, there's requirements on the size of the roads in there. We're hoping to keep everything dirt roads, and of course, keeping the dirt down or the dust down. And then with lights, there's dark skies code and regulation that exists now that is being rewritten. All of the codes and regulations are being rewritten, both in the town and the county. But I'd like to take that further, so that all the lights here are very low spectrum, the ones where like from 100 yards or so away, you can't see them until you're close. So that's very important. Yes.
Leapfrogging off of the questions about transportation to town. I was at some of the meetings for Trev, and one of the few things I did appreciate about the way that they pitched it was that there was a strong emphasis on walkability within the community, and on reducing car traffic within the community. And I wonder if you've carried over any of those principles or thinking about how people in these different units are going to be interacting with third spaces.
Yeah, I mean, that's very important. Walking around on trails all inside the community. I can't really tell people they can't drive inside the community. We have to have roads and everything. So, but we can encourage things like electric golf carts and things like that, and make sure that people don't drive fast, so people feel safer walking, and a designated spot for bikes, which would connect with the bike line everywhere. Yeah, I mean, the less cars, the better.
So does that mean that you're going to have exclusively walking and cycling paths?
Oh yeah, inside the community. Yes. Yeah. Like all of those lines in there, those are roads, but in between them. So something like through here, through the farm, a lot of walking trails and bike things so that it's easier and what's the phrase? Incentivize walking and biking instead of jumping into a car to go someplace. Yeah. Yes.
Who's funding this?
Well, there's kind of two answers there. One is we have an investment group that is helping us with this, not just for the property, but some of the buildings, specifically the affordables. And so that kind of connects with the other question, was how fast are we building and what are we building when? So we have an idea of what we want to do. And then there's also clients coming in that will, pay for their buildings and the design and all that. So those are two separate, I guess, groups there that are providing the money.
How much of it do you have currently?
How much?
Yeah, do you have the full amount now to start? Are you going to need to raise funds?
Oh yeah, no, all of that is in place, but we are still open if anyone wants to come in and invest also. But it's got to be the right perspective. We're not just taking anything, and that gets back to the thing about maintaining absolute control here, so that someone just doesn't come in and expect to try and throw some money around and alter some things or gets any type of control that might change some of these ideas, right? Yes.
Are you able to speak on what the gray water is treated with?
Right. Excuse me. So it's not really something that's been invented. It's the Florida Everglades is how I typically explain it, contained in a rubber lined planter. Sometimes we'll line the bottom with crushed plastic bottles that create housing for the good bacteria that eat the bad bacteria. But it's big rocks, small rocks, dirt, topsoil, plants. No chemicals, nothing that goes into it like that. That's it. Yeah, it is definitely wow. It's amazing. And that kind of speaks to the broader perspective on this, is if you can just step back and learn and follow what nature has done for billions of years, it works. It works amazing. We have a carbon filter after the gray water planter just to get a little bit of smell. And like I said, what we flush the toilet with is clear. You can't smell it. It's clear. Obviously, if you test it, it's got some funky stuff in it. You can't drink it. That's it. And it gives really good, clean water. Yes.
Are any of your investors non-local to Taos that in the future might create a problem recycling this, whatever income generation happens through this outside of Taos, or is this going to keep local money here in Taos?
Right. So they are outside of Taos, although there's a few that are local that might jump in. And there's agreements in place that just because there's investment doesn't mean any of this can change. Now, that being said, some of them have some interesting ideas, right? Some of them's prime focus is affordable housing, like just want to help with that. One has a SIP panel company. SIP panels are framed panels with insulation in them that are designed to then send to a site and get all put together to create like a passive house that's highly insulative. We've done a couple of those. Just running the numbers, it's actually more affordable to build them on site. So we have agreements there so that, to your point, that that this can't change. The mission of this and the focus and being sustainable and off grid and supporting Taos can't change off of what this idea is. And then also I'm maintaining control of it, so that can't happen. And if there's any issues, we just won't take that money, you know? Yes.
I like your idea. It's kind of exciting. I have a question.
Thank you.
You mentioned that you've already built a number of these. Could you give an example of one that I could go look at? It's something up and running for say 10 years or something like that, and see how it's working out, I guess?
Yeah, so there's the Earthship community out there.
Besides that, let's just say.
That's the community that we've done.
Okay.
There's
Are there other ones? I mean,
other communities,
in the country? I mean,
not communities yet.
I guess I misunderstood. I thought you were doing stuff all over.
We've done buildings all over. Yes.
Okay, well, maybe it's something, well, I don't, just something that's got these elements. To see how it's working out, because this is the concept that a lot of communities better be thinking about here pretty soon, if they want to sustain themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, it seems like it's an opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we found with inquiries and demand is every year that goes by, it increases. We become more aware of, just to use it loosely, needing to do more green things. But in terms of a community, it's that one out there. We did one above Valdez, the Reach community up on the slope, which is pretty extreme. And then Reach community, yeah. Rural Earthship Alternative Community Habitat, Reach. And then in seeing individual homes, there's some buildings out there. There's a visitor center. There's some nightly rentals. And depending where you're at, you're here in Taos. That's why I'm saying check those out. They're some new ones there. And then there's ones in, Florida and Montana and all over Vermont that we built.
I guess your buildings, all that part of what's going on. I guess I'm thinking more in terms of the government of the community, how it stays together, how it recycles its money, taxes itself, the successes of that.
Well, that's new to this.
What?
That's new to this. Yeah. The greater world community is basically here's land, here's a bunch of residential buildings. That's it. And kind of here residents organize and do your thing, which some people might say has been wildly successful because it is an off-grid sustainable community. But some people might say, yeah, it didn't really work out because there's a lot of conflict and issues and with how it was developed and rolled out, to be as neutral as I can. And so everything we do, every building we do, we learn from each one, and we learn a lot on each one. It's amazing. So from a community standpoint, that's why we're really dialing this one in terms of the social part and community programs and the HOA and hoping that there aren't HOA fees, but let's grow some food together because that generates some revenue and hopefully that will cover things. For example, we want to have a market in there and recycling, compost and worm farms and animals and really design in and develop and support that social community part. So it's not just, all right, people go for it, that we as humans need that structure and that discipline. Typically when it's just go for it, it's almost like a Lord of the Flies thing. It gets a little unwieldy.
Well, I commend you for wanting to include the Taos community. I've been involved over the years with a lot of developments that never do that. And so I think that is an exciting thing for itself.
Well, it's,
And
yeah,
it'll probably be a guide to the success of it. Because looking at the last development, seems like one of the main things was it might have been a great thing, but it was not appropriate.
well, that's for sure.
And
That's for
so
sure.
Making it, keep bringing this community involved, make it that way, and sort of keep the energy and money revolving around in the community.
Right, right. I mean, that's a very important point, no matter where a community is developed, because the people who live in the community know best. There's no way that a developer can figure it all out, get a plan and say, this is how it is. And then on top of that, you look at Taos and the incredible experience and skills and savvy and knowledge that's here. We'd be stupid not to like learn from that, which is why we're doing these meetings and the website and on and on. Now, the revenue part is also very important. Again, I come back to affordable housing and food production. So we're looking at, you know, all these purple circles are commercial things. Market, the two on the left are schools, a very young kid and middle school type things. And so some of the people who are wanting to get into this community are teachers. And they've run, you know, a country day school and other things. And, you know, I personally can't stand the conventional schools. It's a factory. And so there's a lot of commercial things in here, not to mention the food production on all of these greenhouses and open air food. There's a lot of revenue there. So what we're looking at doing is everybody, every single thing in here, except the affordables, we want to skim 4% off the top and push that to affordable housing off the community through a nonprofit, right? Because there's 350 homeless people in this community. And from what I've learned, there's another 350 or so, depending on who you talk to, on the Pueblo that are homeless. So it's a crisis. It's a critical thing. And anything of this magnitude needs to focus on those two things, affordable housing and food security.
The downstream problem is we have young people leaving the community because they cannot afford to be there. The culture goes with them.
Right,
And
right.
they bring in people from the outside to suffer.
Right. So we have to make things affordable. Yeah. Yes.
I have a couple of questions. Number one, are you going to, I'm sure you will, but are you going to open up meetings of some sort once this is already built, where members of the community can come and learn how they might be able to apply some of these things to their conventional homes?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. That's through our academy, but not just like, same thing with design and build. You know, we're probably going to design and build most of this, but there's UNM Taos here. There's other schools here. So there's a lot of opportunity to bring students together with a lot of amazing, skilled and experienced teachers in the community and see what we can do, see what we can push and you know, biochar and worm farms and permaculture and what was his name? I forget, Roberto something, who makes solar ovens, and he makes restaurant quality food from these solar ovens. He reached out. I'm like, yep, let's do workshops. So all of that is what we're planning as well.
How many jobs will this create? Will it create any jobs for local?
A lot. Hundreds, you know, that's a rough number to guess right now, somewhere in there.
Even people that don't live in the community can come.
Oh, definitely. I'm expecting most learners to be outside the community. Yeah. Yes.
Hi, yeah, I was at your last forum and
Yes.
you had made it pretty clear that you didn't actually have a partnership with the Pueblo whatsoever, even though it kind of is framed that way a little bit in your proposal and whatnot. And as well as with UNM, I think you had actually stated that you did have a partnership with UNM on your website, and that's since been changed. But I'm wondering, since that last conversation, if you have had any more correspondence with the Taos Pueblo, in particular the tribal government, in lieu of the statement that the governor Konchak came out with, saying that there's nothing in this proposal that's okay with tribal government.
Right. Let's see, 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, somewhere in there, I met with the new tribal secretary and presented all of this just to kind of restart things after meeting with the government last year. And I was told that January and February are religious stuff going on and that we should hear back in March to meet and see where it goes. And then we've traded a few emails also. Same thing to that same effect. So that's it so far.
And can you speak a little bit more to, I'm just kind of confused on the exact like water partnership that you're proposing for the Taos Pueblo and how that's going to work out if, and it seems like probably they won't be in partnership with you all on this endeavor. So like, can you explain
Yeah.
the water aspect?
Sure. So just to touch on the first point you made is when a month ago or whatever it was, when we went live with the website and our posters and our text and everything, I had a lot of language in there about a hope for a partnership, what that would look like, affordable housing, food production, and I didn't see it at the time where it was viewed as an existing partnership that was done already. So that was definitely my mistake. So we've changed that. I have not met with the new government since. So I have not been able to have this type of a conversation with them to kind of lay out our plan and the low impact and what we'd like to do. And what the alternative could be, which is this thing split up into a bunch of 1 acre things, which would be really bad for everybody. So that's that. And then the water, like I was saying earlier, I can't predict how much water is coming out of the sky and how much water each building is going to use. So to make sure that there is enough no matter what. That being said, we've had many buildings here for decades, and there's plenty of water and families and kids and laundry and dishes, which is an amazing amount of water that kids make a household use. And it's been fine. But still, to like make things safe and secure. So that's why we're looking at a couple wells on the community. But each one of these wells will be metered, and that will be, I hope, paid directly to the Pueblo. Because as far as I'm concerned, not just the water, but all the land here is theirs. But here we are today, and we're doing our best we can. So that's the specific plan with the water, and hopefully that can work.
It's likely that the Pueblo will not agree to that, so I'm wondering what the alternative would be.
Well, and they just won't get paid for the water if they don't want to accept that.
You pay them for the water, or you take their water anyway.
Well, I have to make sure that there's enough water for the people who are living here. And so if I can't send that money that's metered straight to the Pueblo, it would go into the Affordable Housing Fund, where we're planning on building affordable housing outside the community. Yes.
I see the pictures you have there of the homes. I see what looks like a couple of conventionals and a couple of Earthships.
Right.
Whenever you're speaking about doing 3D printed homes,
Right.
a couple of questions. One would be, how many have you done? And two would be, because I know a little bit about this, I'm curious what your idea of cost with that technology is, and how you can get from there to $500 a month.
Right. Great question. So this project right here, we're starting in Georgia. This is going to be 3D printed. And we've been watching the 3D printers for a while, and they've been using cement, not concrete, which is new, which is why we're in the process of striking on one. Yeah, come on in, grab a seat. And so they're fast, time is money. So we can print about 1,000 square feet in a week with a 3D printer. It's just like a desktop print.
You say that you can do 1,000 square feet in a week. Were you talking about printing the shell or having a finished living space?
Oh, not finished. That's the walls,
That's right.
the interior
I'll
wall.
show you one that an associate did last year in 17 hours.
Yeah, they're fast. They're amazing. I mean, I
The entire project was a 9-week project.
Yeah.
And that was for just slightly over 1,000 square feet.
Yeah, they're amazing.
It didn't come in any, and it's north of $400 per foot.
Bye-bye. Thanks for being here.
And that's in an area with a very substantial low-cost workforce that we don't have here.
Right. So I say a week because I've been told it's 5 days, 4 days, but I'm adding a little bit there just because it's new. And so in addition to our crew, which we're right around 20 plus right now, and we're scaling pretty quick, but that's also where the academy comes in. So we typically have 30 or so students around each building. So it gives us a pretty decent labor force there, right, to get a lot of work done. And most of these students are not like when we think of a student, they're not like a 17-year-old, 18-year-old kid with no skills. Most of them are trade skills, electricians, plumbers, contractors, architects, all this type of thing. And yeah, it is the walls, it's the interior walls. We're going to see how we can print the side interior things for the countertops and just see how precise we can get with it. And so time is money, and so when we can do these buildings faster, it makes the cost per square foot go down. And then on top of that, when we can have our own on-site sawmill that's running on biodiesel, with vigas and logs that don't have to come from Canada, the embodied energy goes way down. Our heavy equipment is running on biodiesel. So a lot of these things, as well as all on one site, allows us to drop the cost per square foot so that like the affordables, we should be able to do those for around $190, $195 a square foot. And then you have the off-grid living systems.
195 foot.
Yeah.
That top house you said that was 3D printed in Georgia?
These are right around $300 a square foot.
And you're telling me that what we're looking at there is 3D printed and not framed wood construction?
That's right. These are 3D printed. That's the same building, two different sides of it. 10-inch thick concrete walls printed. Yes.
So with these farms and with the food production, is there like a requirement of labor force when you're in the affordable houses?
No.
I mean, who's growing all this food?
So that's crew and students. And then some people are going to have the option to not pay the HOA fee and grow some food if they want. Yes.
Will the small affordable housing units also have greenhouses and food production in them?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Will the small affordable housing units also have like greenhouses and food production inside? of them?
Yes. Yeah. Just like this, the typical gray water planters we have on the inside. Yeah. Yes.
So she actually asked part of the question. Before I say that though, can I suggest a fenced dog park? That would be amazing because there aren't any here. I was wondering with the food production and with the HOA, if there was any requirement, like if we get one of these units and it has the greenhouse and we've got our little Florida Everglades and we can't grow plants because they all die, is your staff is helping with that to get everything, get everyone up and running, like over?
Yes. Yeah. So that gets back into kind of designing and really supporting and put a lot of energy, not electric, but just energy into the whole social side of things. And so we're looking at doing packages. One of those is we'll maintain your gray water planter for you and grow a bunch of food, and you can pick it or you'll have a box on your counter, kind of like a CSA thing. Yes.
So I see in the 28 commercial buildings bullet point there, you allude to community community spaces. And I'm wondering, partially inspired by the dog park, whether you're planning any non-commercial community spaces, especially landscaped outdoor spaces like a park or a plaza, for people to gather without having to pay much, right? Because if we're talking about people who need affordable housing, they also need affordable places to chill.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So that's pretty much the idea with the community center. So the space isn't rented out just to gather, right? It's there to gather. But that being said, a lot of the places, and again, the numbers you see and the circles, that's, a pretty decent plan, but it's not set in stone. It's not rigid, right? And so in and amongst some of the green farming areas, there'll be, benches and seating areas. You can see some of the circles in the pink ag part. I think some of those, there's talk of maybe doing like a little pond ice rink thing. A kind of like a walking track, so there's a lot of that isn't in here yet that we're planning on bringing in after this type of a feedback so that the larger thing can get more solidified, and then we'll come in with all those.
Could I also pitch maybe like a covered bandstand area?
Oh yeah, for sure. Those are good ideas. Yes, in the corner there.
The current code says that each home or each subdivision a well can only service 6 homes. How are you getting around that? Because that would be 20 wells. You said you only want 3.
Right. So there's, we're doing this as summary subdivisions for 5 circles each. And so, but the community well can support the community. And so we identified that with the county through 3 meetings so far with that same kind of idea of needing some type of a backup and how do we do this? So that was suggested to us as a solution. Yes.
Consulted with permaculturists and regenerative farmers and things like this to create an actual mapping of how you're going to do the farming here to regenerate the soil and to recycle the water that's already available in the environment. Then you wouldn't have to use any water from the outside of this environment first place to do the farming. Have you actually made a map of this? What that might look like?
Other than these green spots, no. But we do have a team that's being assembled that are experts like that I'm definitely not, that will be telling us what to do there, and we'll put it into these site maps and everything. And then just to hit on a point there is that the gray water and the black water that's coming out of all these buildings is a lot. It is a lot of water. So that is what I'm planning on to provide the water to grow with. I don't want to use any well water for that, let alone catching from the fresh. I'm hoping that it's all from the gray and black water to grow with. Yeah.
Second part of that, have you figured into your pricing what it would cost to have all these systems for the farming itself into your overall pricing for this community?
Right. Not specifically yet, but that's where a lot of the funding will go toward. Yes.
2 suggestions. Do you know what a makerspace is?
Yes.
Cool. It's not already on there. That would be great.
Yes.
Is there plans for like child-friendly spaces as well, so playgrounds or anything like that, along with the community space? And then question would be, America's too car dependent, in my opinion, and I'm wondering where cars would be allowed in this community and where they could be blocked off so that pedestrians and children and people in wheelchairs don't have to worry about getting run over.
Right. That's similar to the question earlier. So we have all these roads and driveways. That's pretty much, where the cars would be. Although this point that you're raising, we haven't really got into specifics yet about the idea of closing off. You can kind of see how some of these are in groupings so that cars can't go to certain places. But, then it's hard because some clients, you know, who want to get in, people who want to live, they want to drive their car to the house. So I'm hoping to do a lot in this community. Some things you know, like no cars at all, or in certain spots. We'll see how it rolls out. And then the maker space, that's brought up with some other people in our company already.
What is that?
It's a place where people can co-create products and services, all kinds of things, crafts and jewelry and all that.
Place where people can come, where they might not be able to afford the equipment that they're using.
Right.
Okay, so like a TC, but you're talking more like craft type.
Yes. So we want to make sure that we have space so that the equipment, tools, and machines are there available for anyone, whether they're in the community or not, to come in and do things. Yes.
To touch on the water subject, which is clearly the biggest issue here, I think we've talked about this prior, but with the proper planner coming in prior to this development, doing the necessary earthworks to shape the land, to slow water, build the ponds, the swales, the bugles, like we could recharge the aquifers, and then on every collection basin, you can have atmospheric water generators that are taking water every single day, like where those wells would never need to be tapped.
Right. That's the goal.
Like all these things are real.
Yeah. And so those types of things are what we want to not just raise awareness on, but actually do. You know, the well is a backup, emergency. And the only reason why they're there is, you know, this last winter has been intense.
Did the county give you a requirement for fire heads, for hammerheads, and whatnot for fire department?
Right. So we went through that with the last community, the Greater World community. So each building is going to have, each building is going to have at least two 1,700-gallon cisterns. So there's going to be water and cisterns all over the community, right? So in addition to that, there's also a couple, I think, 10,000-gallon cisterns down there. So that is more than enough, according to the fire department requirements, more than enough water that's available because it's everywhere already. Now, to get back to what you were saying, there's a lot of amazing things out there that not just, you know, quote unquote permaculture principles to keep water on the land and swales, like you were saying. And so the things that you were mentioning are exactly what we want to do there, and showcase them and highlight them and have workshops and students so that we can all learn from that and demonstrate like the amount of water, like you're saying, that we can pull out of the atmosphere, even though it is fairly dry here.
And also, within that initial excavation, if it's thought out well enough, there's many building materials that could be excavated in that process, like the cliche that can be used as lime to make Roman concrete, waterproof concrete. We can get away from a lot of these rubber linings and plastics and a lot of the things that I'm concerned with, that I know other people are concerned with as well. And the basalts as well. I mean, basalts all around us. I mean, there's so many materials that if that initial excavation is done well enough, there's could be a surplus of materials to then work with that have been approved from the existing site. So you're not having to bring materials from outside.
Yeah, that's the direction we want to go in, and explore those things and see what we can do. And that being said, the 3D printing that we're going to be doing with concrete's just temporary. We need to iterate a lot of doors, well more than what this community is going to do, so that we can print with site dirt and geopolymers. And I'm not an expert in that, but people I'm talking to, as well as you, are that's what we need to get to, because concrete is terrible. And so that's the goal there, to do that as well. Yes.
So it seems like there's a an out of order first and then map out where all these buildings are gonna go, you know, you can tune it into the earth a little bit more, exactly where the buildings go. Would you be open to restructuring the way this map looks right here, where all these buildings can move around after earthworks, water restoration of soil, all these things happen? Because if you do it after, you might have buildings placed in the wrong place for the natural contours of the earth, how it needs to move the water, be able to sustain the different areas. And then, you know, if you go the other way around, you might end up damaging buildings, you might have all sorts of issues that come after that.
Right. It's a very good point. But everything is going to be in drawings and a site map before we break the ground. So we're not going to start things and then figure it out that way in terms of the larger things, where buildings go, grading, earthworks, and all that. That's also required by the county for us to even start. We have to have all that mapped out, which we're in the process of. Yes.
I'm curious what the vision is for the animal synergy part.
Yeah, so I'm not an expert in animals, but an amazing group of people are coming together. Is you know, that's a source of food and cheese and milk and just for especially young people and older people to be around animals. It has a calming effect and everything. So that's where the experts will come in and tell us where to do it, how to do it. But that's obviously very important. You know, sheep, chickens, alpacas, all of it. Yes.
Just to piggyback on that, I know in one of the posters you had up there, you mentioned that there is a disaster readiness plan.
Thank you.
Does that include the animals on site?
For the disaster.
For disaster response situation? If something happened out
Oh, yeah, that's why we're doing everything, to be independent of anything that can happen outside the county, outside the community, the Taos community. We don't want to have, you know, borders and boundaries around this community. And it's like this community is, you know, that's separate. But that food production is very, very important, both on the vegetables and the animal synergy part, because we don't know, you know, when trucks can stop delivering to Smiths and all that. It can happen like that. We are all in the emergency room on every level of that, not just power and water, you know, propane and gas, but food. I mean, look at what's happening with eggs right now. So as far as I'm concerned, we're in a disaster right now, and we're moving as quickly as we can to set us all up so that we can mitigate that disaster. And it's going to take a lot of work, all of us together, so that we can get these systems online: food, power, wastewater management, water supply, community, all together, not just in here. Right? We can only do so much in this. This is very low impact. There are other places around the county that's appropriate to do very high density. Yes.
So I'm thrilled that there's retail space in there, but there's no parking for anybody coming in. And I'm wondering about this old lady with a bum ankle, sustainable older housing, trying to get anywhere. Like, I love the idea of a golf cart. That's hilarious.
Well, each circle.
That's one question. The second question is, if I was a member of this community and all of a sudden we've got a lot of a need for a library or a small theater or whatever, is there a governance thought through for how we come together and make a call about, okay, we need that pavilion for everybody to be able to have things on Saturdays or whatever?
Yeah, there's details in the HOA for that, you know, to make spaces, reserve spaces. I think it was at the last meeting, or a couple of recent individual ones, where the idea of a library or the open free type thing where everyone drops books off. Actually, yeah, one of the ladies who teaches was talking about that. And then in terms of parking, each circle has parking. So like this one, and I know it's tiny, but that's parking, right? So the rest of the circles don't have them yet, but each one will have parking for each building. And that's a county required thing. You know, you have to have a certain amount on top of that for visitors. And then of course the whole accessibility and everything there. Yes.
So all your little circles, right, your purple ones ones are your commercial things.
Yes.
The turquoise ones, those are all affordable housing,
Yes.
and are they all multi-unit?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And then the other part of the question was, it was just touched on briefly about the traffic, and you're basically deferring to the traffic study that was done back when it was the TREB and it was during COVID, and we're still dealing with a very overburdened road, just as it is right now before any of this development happens. So basically, you're not offering any information about what's gonna happen with that. You're just saying, oh yeah, they already figured that out. That's what I heard.
Well, not exactly. I mean, every development needs a traffic study so that then any potential requirements or adjustments to that development should happen if it's going to create a lot more cars and all that. And so the point I was making is that this community is a lot less dense, a lot much lower impact. So yeah, so that last traffic study, you know, that study allowed for the previous development.
They just thought
Yeah. I'm with you on that.
They really weren't offering much of anything for what's up with that. I live right off that highway, and I've seen it in 33 years become a highway.
Yeah, for sure.
A country road, you know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not getting any less. This is definitely gonna increase that.
Oh, sure.
I'm just wondering, what?
Yeah. So
That's not necessarily your thing. That's a thing the county has to deal with, whatever, it's other government. But I still think it's not, I'm not hearing anything that's telling me.
well, yeah. If I can just finish, yeah, definitely. This is going to be more than just empty land, right? It's going to bring more traffic in, which is why we're trying to keep this as low impact as possible, which is really just based on numbers, right? And I'm keeping it as low as possible. And this is pretty much it. You know, couple things that I'm getting is that instead of having senior affordable housing separate, which was again my initial idea, but I'm hearing that it's going to be better to have, you know, the seniors more mixed in. And I overlooked that for whatever reason. And so the point that I was making with the previous traffic study is that study satisfies our development in terms of getting a traffic study, right? So we don't have to get a new one. But what it did require, and it is our thing, it's not just the county's, whether technically it is ours or not, I'm making it our thing because we care. And so that tells us the result of certain levels of traffic, of certain level of cars, about things that should happen. And so since this is much lower impact, there are less requirements according to that study, but we're still going to do those things, which is what I'm hearing from the Department of Transportation is a circle, a roundabout thing in the highway, right? So we're going to do those things, and that's very important to us. And that's supposed to, you know, lower the traffic and accidents that can happen. So we're taking that into account. It's very important. The other thing I was getting is that Valencia Road over there, which is the road that goes all along that way, the neighbors on that side and all that didn't want that road to ever get bigger. Then there's like an eminent domain thing where they can take some of the land. And so I went straight to the county and asked, well, would this affect that road? And they were like, no, it's so less dense and low impact that will never affect Valencia. And then on top of that, that would never happen, that road there. So I totally hear you. Yes, this is going to bring in more cars than empty land.
Projected population of the entire development, not in terms of structure, in terms of people.
Well, I don't know if there's going to be one person in this building or two or four, right? So we're looking at 83 residential structures, but some of those can be one person, some can be a family of 3 or 4. So that's tough to answer. Yes?
So out of all of these commercial spaces, how much of them are going to be leased out to local businesses? How many different spaces are there? What's the cost of a lease? Because I've talked to at least 400 businesses around Taos the last 2 months. And I've gotten a considerable amount of people saying they won't move to a better location because everything's too expensive. All of these spaces in Taos are too expensive, the majority of businesses. So what is the cost for each individual unit and how many units will be available for local businesses?
So we're not allowing any outside Taos businesses outside the county, no corporate chains, nothing like that. This is all for Taos. Same thing with the short-term rentals. No short-term rentals in here at all. Now, to answer your question specifically, we have an idea and we have county regulations that we're following. So these purple circles are all 2 acres. We're allowed to do 2 buildings on 1 2-acre lot. Each building can have 10 doors in it, max. So I'm maxing that out on the affordable housing units. But on the commercials, we're not going to do 10 doors per building. And so as people express interest and they want to come in, they're going to tell me if they need a 2,000 square foot space or a 1,000, depending on the nature of their business that they're coming in. And then to the cost, we want to do everything in here affordable. So same thing with the affordable housing. We're going to make sure that those numbers are affordable. We're not planning on leasing though. We're planning on selling the commercial spots. Now, if that's to someone who then wants to lease, that can be worked out. But we're not planning on being a landlord for the commercial and leasing those. But we do want to make sure that everything is affordable so that not just certain types of businesses can get in there, right?
Seems like you might still hit a buffer in there. Not everybody, not all these small businesses, they don't have a lot of money.
Right.
Go buy a space. So leasing is a good option for small businesses. I'm talking about very small or mid-sized businesses being able to come in and operate a space that's suitable to them. And if you build it to demand, if a mechanic, I know the specific mechanic that the regulations of Taos don't allow them to go to another unit that would be better for them. So if you have a unit built to the specific design that they need, I see how that's beneficial. But what would be the estimate of cost per, say, square foot in one of these units?
To lease?
I guess, I mean, either way, if you're considering leasing, then yeah, what will be the cost there? If it's for sale, what will be the cost there?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, you're making a good point there. That not every business, small business here, can buy a piece of the land and then pay for a building and that. So that is a very good point, and we have to make sure that that lease is affordable. The cost of the higher end buildings are $300 a square foot. The affordables are right around $190, $195. We'll see. So, the commercial buildings have more requirements, so that's going to be someplace in the middle, right? And then we'll be able to figure it out from there about what the exact cost is. But it is very important that we make sure that's affordable, right? We want businesses in here to thrive, not just, take money.
Have you done a study comparing the cost per foot of construction, the average cost in Taos today, or even compared it with viewership?
Right. So,
400, the big low end average is not custom.
Airships generally cost around $280 to $325 and up, depending on the finishes and all that. Conventional homes are very similar. It depends on how nice and finished they are. I've seen them for $450 a square foot here and more, and that's.
So you're thinking you'll be able to pull this off somewhere around 50% of what any other builder is able to do.
On the 3D printing with all of our internal processes?
I haven't done any 3D printing or even know better. That's not a cheaper method.
Well, doing it at 190.
Faster method. However, the substantial cost isn't in the structure. The substantial cost is in your MEPs. It's your electrical, your heating in there, your plumbing.
That is part of it, but we don't have heating. we don't have heating or cooling systems at all. So it's a combination of both for sure. And when I can put up all the structure of a wall in a week, as opposed to 8 weeks, it's a lot cheaper. And the 3D printing is only really being run by 2 people. Whereas if I'm doing something else, excuse me?
I said none of those will be interns. Yeah.
There will be no interns running the 3D printer. No, definitely not. But my crew that is running the printer, just like a printer on your desktop, you're not really doing much. You're watching it to make sure it doesn't get clogged, right? So if I'm doing a poured concrete wall or rammed earth and tires and it takes me 6 or 8 weeks, that's a 10, 12 person crew with 20, 30 students. That's a considerable payroll as opposed to a week with 2 people. So it is a difference. It is a big difference. And then I have the biodiesel and sawmill and everything else that lowers it drastically. Yes.
So I'm quite aware that heritage is really significant to this community, and preservation of it comes into play with that. And I suppose one thing that I've noticed about this community is the architecture is quite consistent as often as possible unto the heritage. And this building is very conventional, and I'm just a little confused by the fact that we would be putting up 28 commercial buildings and using an architectural design that is at such a contrast. I mean, I see your airships, and I know that that has its layout within the community, but this other architecture with the 3D printing, that's not congruent to the tradition of this land.
Yes.
And I think we're all aware that the indigenous need us to help preserve. And so upon building something that is counterculture to it, I think it will create some type of cultural clash. What is your thought on that? Because from what I'm seeing, that looks like something in Aspen, Colorado.
Yeah, exactly. Very, very good points. Thank you for bringing it up. This is just to illustrate an example that you can have a completely off-grid building and it can look like anything. Will this exact building be built in this community? Maybe. Depends on what the clients want, right? But that being said, to your point, we do have to protect that heritage, and there are neighborhood association and county regulations that they have to look a certain way, right? Southwestern style. That's very nebulous, right? And the county has told me, like, it's this, but what does that exactly mean? So that's very important to us, you know, that it fits in. It doesn't look like some kind of eyesore thing. So yeah, just to make sure that this is an example of something that is still sustainable and off-grid. Yeah.
Follow-up point to that is your investors coming in. You said that they are predominantly non-local individuals, and with that being in consideration, do you feel that they have any historic respect for education or reverence as to what we are preserving here in terms of culture of the indigenous, and what is their efforts in including that within this development?
Right. They don't know. They're not from here. They don't know at all. They're relying on me and us to basically tell them how it is, you know. They like that we've been doing this for 40, 50 years, you know, and they respect that. And so they're like, you know, whatever you think. It started with, what do you want to do to, like, what's your big next step? And I'm like, a community, affordable housing, food security. After that, they're just, okay, whatever you think, you know. They don't know. Like I was saying earlier, they have some ideas, and what about SIP panels, and what about this? I'm like, okay, interesting, right? Yeah.
You count them on two hands, like the amount of investors you actually have.
Yes. Can I count them on two hands?
Yeah.
Yes, can count them on two hands. Yes.
Just curious. So,
Yeah, no, I totally get it. And I would have the same points and concerns about, you know, who are these people? Are they outside of Taos? And we're very protective, and that's important. And this is why some of them are coming here, you know? Yes.
I have three questions. You know on Valencia Road where the Tarleton Ranch sign is?
Right.
Where is that on this map? Just so I know, 'cause I live on Valencia.
Right there,
Okay.
give or take.
Number two, do you have a board?
Do I have a what?
A board?
A board? Yes.
You do.
Yeah.
And number three, I was one of the people that messaged you about starting a makerspace.
Right.
And it's
Okay.
curious with all these commercial spaces, I'm assuming the academy is gonna be in those spaces, like Pangea facilities will be in some of those purple.
Classroom space.
What percentage of those are you wanting to be fully commercial by other people, and what percentage will Pangea? And including like a makerspace, would that be a Pangea thing, or would that be someone else having to start it? It's a community thing.
Yeah, that'd probably be through the academy, I would guess. But to his point back there about not selling all the commercials and making sure that there's some leasing going on so that we can, again, make sure that there's affordability there. Now, the community center is right here. And this is to get back to your point, so that everyone can meet and get together and meet about whatever. That space is not going to be rented for those things. That's why it's there. We are planning on having some workshops and things over here. You know, it's nice that it's close to the school. It's nice that it's out of the way for a workshop. But I'm also waiting for the food and animal experts to tell me where the best place to do the food and animals, which is going to also inform about the best place to have workshops and maker spaces like that, and then the classroom space. Even though we do have the community center there, you know, that's pretty much the spot for it. And then, you know, there's a decent sized gravel pit thing here that we're looking at to doing some type of a open air type amphitheater space, low noise, very low impact, nothing like the solar music festival we did back in the 90s. So that's the idea there. Yes. Yeah, you. Yeah.
I have a question about the nonprofit, your nonprofit organization.
Right.
You keep talking about investors. I'm a little confused on that. What do the investors get out of that?
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, I should have clarified. So we are a full service architecture and construction company, private company. We have Pangea Academy, which is a 501c3 nonprofit that does the disaster relief around the world. Haiti, India, sustainable off-grid things are highly effective in disasters. We get clean water, wastewater treatment, and strong structure quickly. So that's what the nonprofit does. It teaches everything and goes off and does disaster relief. And then because of receiving investment, we have a separate entity called Pangea Community Investments that receives it. So those are the entities here. And I've learned that over the last year and a half in terms of the investment side. You know, we don't want to water down our company and have too many people control it, right? Again, getting back to that maintaining control so we can keep things going consciously. So those are the entities there. And so Pangea Biotechs are the developers, our architecture and construction company, and the investment is through an entity into us so that we can protect us. Does that make sense? The what? Well, taoscommunity.org is just a domain name that is easy to remember. So when people ask, where can I get more info? taoscommunity.org. That's all. And Pangea Community is pangeacommunity.org.
So the investors are making money off this. Lot of money.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, that's what investment is. Sure.
So all the stuff we talked about doing for the community is nice, but somebody's doing a little confused as to, you're gonna have commercial spaces out there. How is this gonna support Taos community, or is it going to compete against local businesses that are already having problem being sustainable?
Yeah, that's a good point. So the first part is how can we design a community that meets a lot of these critical needs: affordable housing, food production, workforce housing, commercial stuff, and yeah, make some money. The making money part is not the main point by any means, but it's a tool, just like a hammer. A hammer can be used for good, it can be used for bad. We want to take roughly 4%, and we're still finalizing it off the top of everything, toward affordable housing and food production outside the community, or food supply outside the community. But at the same time, we have to have the business and the community itself make money. That's business. But we're not squeezing every penny we can by making this some crazy high dense thing so that we can pack them all in and see how much money we can get out, like most developers do. Definitely not the point. So we're kind of balancing this thing of finances with how many units, and finding an equilibrium there so that everyone is happy, right? And fortunately, the investor group, they're good with that, and I've made that clear. Like, this is not something that is going to turn some crazy money and all that. This is enough, right? And then the competing thing, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a thing. Any new business that comes in, or new area where new businesses can be, there is competition. There is healthy competition. But one of the things there is no outside Taos business is going to come in here. No corporate chain at all. So, maybe, I don't know, maybe the Love Apple will have another thing out here, or something like that. We'll see how it goes, right? But that is a very important point that we need to be sensitive on, is the competition. Yes, you had a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to circle back really quickly to the transit conversation and concerns about traffic density. I know you had said that there would be a bus stop, and you had said that you're interested in the bike lane running along the highway there.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if the Pangea community, with its real estate that fronts the highway, would be willing to take the first step and actually build bike lanes along their section, which, if we were able to complete the bike lanes from Prado and Seco down into town, would relieve traffic congestion and density.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Well, we're actually way out ahead of you. The bike lane is already going in on the east side of it. It's approved, but federal funding has changed a lot in the last month and a half. So there's concern there. But okay, that's a challenge. We'll figure that out. It's approved. And then there's other spots. We've met with the Enchanted Trails Association a couple times, and there's a couple spots as you get closer to town, and where there are some bike lanes, and we just have to connect them. So we've met with them. A couple people have expressed interest on getting in. Bike lanes, and biking is very important to them. So that's why I say we're kind of maybe right there with you, or already making plans to, a couple friends of ours who have clients in Des Montes and Seco really, really want bike lanes or bike paths. So this is a big deal, right? And we're kind of using this to help support, like I said, getting a bike lane from the way south all the way to the way north.
Would you consider a bike lane
On our side?
running through the property?
I'd consider a bike lane anywhere.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, it would be incredible to have bike paths that didn't even have to run adjacent?
Oh, yeah. No, I see what you're saying. In addition to the bike lane on the east side of the highway, there will definitely be bike lanes inside of it. Yes. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't catch that quick. Yes.
Okay, I'm afraid I have a somewhat technical.
That's all right.
Question.
Yeah.
You say that all these houses are off-grid, self-sufficient,
Except for a little bit of water.
except for water.
Yeah, a little bit.
I'm really concerned about energy. But can you actually supply appliances?
Yes.
Hot water, space heat, charging an electric vehicle, off-grid with no fossil fuel backup?
Yeah, we've been doing it for decades. And when we have passive solar, which is heat from the sun, and thermal mass, which is all the buildings are thermal mass, concrete, rammed earth. Pumice-crete is amazing, but it has insulative qualities as well. That heat gets absorbed into that thermal mass. So the point is that we're able to maintain 3 feet off the ground, 69 degrees in any climate. And we've done it. Alaska, Canada, Mexico, where it's 120 degrees, all over the place. So the heating and cooling thing with cooling tubes and ventilation works. It's amazing, just like the gray water planters.
I've stayed in a few cruise ships. It was wild. I stayed in a few cruise ships and I talked to people. And they say, yeah, if you're going to live there, you're going to need a wood stove. And you're going to need some kind of a propane.
Yeah,
diesel generator to back you up. You're not going to get through 3 cold, cloudy days in winter.
So it depends. Yeah, it depends on the building. And there's a lot of buildings out there that are older, that are different designs. Some we didn't even build. And so, yeah, there are those out that are out there. Some buildings didn't even have cooling tubes, right? So it's hard to ventilate them. And so the buildings that we've done, especially the power systems lately, the panels bring in so much power. The batteries are amazing. Every year, these companies, all these solar panel companies and battery companies leapfrog each other. And so when you take out needing electricity for an HVAC system or electric heat, you have a lot more power left, right? So our power systems have to be a lot smaller. So they're a smaller investment, but plenty big enough so that you can have anything you need. Now, if you leave, I don't know, a hair dryer or a couple hair dryers on all night long or for 24 hours, yeah, you might run it down. But that being said, yeah, any appliance, and the appliances keep getting more efficient. The bottom line is, and I get that question a lot, you can have more than enough power to do pretty much anything you need. There are certain things that, like, you probably don't want to do, like blacksmithing or something. Some of that equipment takes a lot of energy, some workshop type things. We have done some buildings where we have EV cars charging off of them, but you got to slow charge them. If you want to charge them fast, it takes a lot of power. Project we're doing in California, in Wrightwood, California, about an hour and 20 minutes northeast of LA. We're doing an EV charger on there, but it's slow charging. There's plenty of power for that. So that's the EV charging thing. So yeah, there's plenty.
Okay, so say you were going to build something on the size of that market.
On the affordable housing with 20 units? Oh, right. Uh-huh.
What sort of battery?
Well, it's...
100 kilowatt hours?
Oh, no. It's the same thing because it's thermal mass and passive solar. So something like this is probably 6 kilowatts, 7 depending. That's about 5 kilowatts or so. That's a small system, right? I was in one of the split levels out there. I had an 8 kilowatt system. I could not use all the power. This thing is probably, something like that. That's a 3-bedroom. That's probably going to be around 12 kilowatts. The earthship we're doing, it's a concrete earthship. Thanks for being here. That's a 3-bedroom. It's a curved concrete that we're probably going to print. That's going to be, and we do a load evaluation sheet, where the client fills everything out, every little thing, even your phone charger. We size that, we look at the climate, we add about 20, 30% or so. I think that one's 15 kilowatts, which for a conventional building is tiny, because conventional buildings use a crazy amount of power, which is why it hasn't really taken off, because it's just too big of an investment that you're never really going to see a payback on. So when you have a building that is designed sustainably, regeneratively, it doesn't need that much electricity for heating or cooling. The water can be heated with the sun, or you have these new Rheem water heaters that are electric, but they're hybrid, they're heat pumps. So they don't directly heat the water. They take water and heat and bring that heat into them. They're super, super efficient. And so when you start to design things a little different, you design things down, the power system has to be that much smaller. So it is realistic, and it does work, and it's a good investment. You'll see the return. Yes, and then you.
For the brown and the turquoise, the affordable low income, will you have a community laundry facility? That's one. And two, what about garbage? Are you going to do any local recycling?
Yes, definitely. The laundromat thing I didn't think of before. One of the clients who's actually moving into one of the workforce housing units and wants to be a teacher at the school, she doesn't want a washer or dryer in the house. So she brought that up. I was like, oh yeah, of course, that's a great idea. Gives us a ton of gray water, right, to grow food with. So yeah, we're going to fit that in, and that was just 2 or 3 days ago. It's not on this map just yet. And then the other part, garbage. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. So a local company reached out, and I forget their name, but yeah, we're going to recycle everything so that as little as possible goes to the landfill. Compost, cans and bottles, which we use in our buildings, cardboard, and yeah, have a transfer station at a good spot that's not disruptive. Yeah, so it can be picked up. Whether that is, it's probably going to be something, and I'm just thinking out loud, where it's brought to a spot and then the company comes and takes it rather than the trash truck going all over the place, right? We got to figure that out. But that's going to be in the HOA, that you got to recycle as much as possible, because that's the whole idea here. Yes.
Yeah. So the big picture, the small picture, the big picture, I'm thinking of insurance.
Mm-hmm.
Liability, say, for HOA, and also anybody that's borrowing money for whatever it's going to be.
Or financing.
Insurance. Now, I know this is a new deal, so you may not have some background. I was wondering on what's your experience with insurance companies? Because this is a crisis in the country right now, mostly because of climate.
California from the fires.
Climate, but insurance companies are recognizing that there's a problem.
Yes.
We're lucky we don't have those problems, but you still got liability fire.
Mm-hmm.
And I would wonder about maybe a facility out there for a satellite volunteer fire department.
Yeah.
Also a possible station for the sheriff, just to.
Right there.
So you've already got, that's one mistake, so I didn't.
That's all right. That's all right.
Yeah,
I'd say it.
and it can also train local people on how to respond.
Right. That's a very good point. So we've been through that for a while, and this kind of touches on the whole disaster relief thing. Obviously, it's different when we go to India and there's a 30-foot tsunami that came in, and we're there for 2 weeks, and we get a flush toilet, wastewater treatment, and a building up, and we teach the locals, and they build more. And it's been through earthquakes, and they're fine. So.
Are you finding the insurance companies are able to?
Yeah.
Type of community, because they're non-standard, and you know how those guys are.
Sure. Yeah, so I'm getting to that. So when you have buildings that are resilient to disasters, right, as off-grid buildings are, they don't have infrastructure, right? So yeah, so they'll have their own power, their own water, their own wastewater, and they're resilient, so they'll get through disasters. They're a lower risk. So when insurance companies look at them and banks look at these buildings, they like them better because it's a lower risk. From a bank standpoint, it's not going to be a total loss. So the risk on them lending money, their risk is lower. And that's the name of the game with banks and financing and investors, right? They want to protect their money. They want to protect the investment. So when I can produce a building that is going to resist pretty much anything that's going to get thrown at it, both natural disasters and political disasters, that's the whole name of the game, is to be independent, right? So when banks see that, they like it better. Yes, it is alternative, and tires can be weird if we're going to build rammed earth and tire things. So there's still that, but each year that goes by, it gets more familiar. And then but the story is the same with insurance companies. You know, when an insurance company is going to insure a building, they're looking at the same thing, a risk. Is that building going to get completely wiped out from whatever disaster in the climate they're in? And if it is, their rates go through the roof, or they'll just cancel it, like the fires in California. But when I show them a building that is going to resist and make it through, thank you for coming. Again, it's a lower risk. So once they kind of get through the alternative thing, which is why I don't like to use that word, these are just sustainable off-grid things. I don't even like to use the word Earthship, because that's still like, what is that? You know, even to this day, building, oh yeah, it's rammed earth and tires. It's like, wait, what? It's still a weird bonkers thing. So it's important that that gets explained. But to your point, insurance companies and banks, the risk is lower, so they like it better.
You know, on construction loan, or adding a garage or an upgrade.
Right.
You're finding with Earthship, it's not that hard to go into the bank.
Well, I don't use the word Earthship. I use sustainable off-grid. So the building in Wrightwood, we're doing, and it's in California, so it's different. That's concrete. So it's a normal building. And that gets to the 3D printing. That's normal also. I can take 2 more questions. Is that all right? Yes. Yeah, you. Right. We're starting with rent because that's the most vulnerable, the most in need. That income level probably can't put down 20, 30, 40 grand to finance and buy something. So we're just 500 a month, first and last, you're in. So yeah, first it's renting, but that can graduate into owning. Right. It depends on the lot. So for example, this one here has 18 units on it. So this piece of land will sell for something, and then each person pays 18th, right? So that's another good way to have multiple units so that one person or 2 people isn't buying the whole lot, right? Oh yeah, yeah. And so we're keeping the affordables adaptable. So if it's 1 or 2 people, 350, 400 square foot. But if it's a family, there's 700 square feet, and the workforce is closer to 800. Yes.
So the smaller properties are going to be like condo ownership, and the larger market for both those are going to be you're buying the dirt. How does that? What are you buying?
You're buying the lot that the building is on, as well as basically access to the parts in the middle where we have a little farm thing in there. Yeah, yeah. And they're multifamily buildings. The county told me about condo things, the condo codes and regulations to make that happen. It seems like the multifamily would be smoother and easier. All right, we're out of time. I'm sorry. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate all the feedback. And the next one is next Saturday at the TCA at 1. Thank you. Oh, right, that's Gavin. So that's Gavin. Right? So you're, so it's all this. Right, so there's Gavilon, no, Garland Ranch is not there.
Yeah.
Gavilon's the south part.
Yeah.
So the community's here. Oh, no, it's here, okay, I see it. Yeah, this is a small map. So
Yeah. Right.
because Gavilon is the south boundary of the community. See how
Yeah.
Gavilon is right there?
Yeah, yeah.
Houses, right? See how it curves around and down? This is your community. Oh, I see it right there. On the left edge. Yeah. So that's the beginning of the. Yeah, you have the old, this is the old ranch road. See how Gavilon curves around? This is less, it's just more of a. The ranch is
Still.
it's a little bit down from that. Yeah, it's like that. I see that.
So where you have the affordable housing on Valencia Road.
The turquoise.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's somewhere. Probably next to the other. Yeah, I see that now.
No, I wouldn't think so. It shouldn't use that much.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Oh, right on.
Appreciate it.
Okay, cool.
I wanted to ask them each way.
Yeah.
We're paying 500 right now. How much more?
Sure.
Well,
Okay, so you're.
Okay. It seems like a lot for a day.
yeah.
And Taos needs it severely.
I don't know.
Like for instance, my
Yeah,
dog,
but it's also
run wild.
there's something about
well, I don't know if we can actually.
I think this should use less, but I don't know. And that's it's like running the looking around to ask them what their model is.
Because then everybody can, in the county.
Oh, right. Right. Okay, because I'm just thinking safety.
Yeah.
It's just a dog park.
I'm gonna grab my laptop.
Yeah, I'm thinking like it's even one day. Yeah.
So, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, when I lived in the ships overnight in the summer, it was.
Oh, and you're different.
Well, versus a
Yeah.
commercial.
Yeah.
It's also talking to people. Well, that's, what's that? Yeah, okay, so.
Yeah.
Still,
And
some
I'm just saying, like, when were those residents who lived in also red steps? Because I know that they was, yeah, I don't know.
Phoenix was.
Yeah.
Another one was not quite finished.
Yeah. Yeah, because I know the original one was like, those guys didn't have any kind of ventilation systems, which they had more modern ones did.
Right, for cooling, yeah.
I don't know. I'm just thinking, I know that